was getting all the records out and ready to go ahead for a whole hour.
We had actually a very good record library.
And then the wonderful moment when all those records came from Capitol in the States. All the new ones, all the new releases. Yeah.
If you're listening to music that avidly, which I was, as everybody in my generation were, listening to the birth pangs of rock and roll, Luxembourg had to have an influence. Of course it was an influence in my life. It introduced me to Elvis, for a start. I know that if there hadn't been an Elvis, there couldn't be a Cliff Richard. I mean, even now, I remember reading about Elvis and reading about the American stars, and then suddenly, almost it seemed like overnight, between the middle of '58 and the end of '58, there was such a drastic change in my life, because one minute I was reading about the stars, the next minute I was in the headlines. Elvis and Cliff battled it out in top of charts. I thought, Elvis and Cliff. I couldn't believe that my name would ever be linked with someone like Elvis's. I mean, it was just the most amazing feeling. And the same way, having listened to Luxembourg, you know, to suddenly find myself with my own program on Luxembourg and find myself being Request of the Week or whatever it was, I mean, it was fantastic sensation, really wonderful. So they do all come together. As far as I'm concerned, Luxembourg rock and roll, my career, certainly all fit in those early days.
Touched by the feeling that's hard to control. Let me tell you, people, I was born to rock and roll.
I was the first girl disc jockey, and it absolutely went to my head. I adored it.
You were always terribly ladylike.
Well, until the Beatles, we actually, well, I wore cocktail frocks, beautiful silk things with tight waists, like Al McCogan's frocks, you know. But I had to do all my programs in England, so these programs were recorded and flown out.
People thought you were in Luxembourg, didn't they?
I think they did. It was a big bluff, really.
Sometimes I do much more work than Paul, but we won't mention that, will we?
And on other occasions, I write 5 songs in a row.
We did not know at EMI whether the Beatles were good, bad, or indifferent. It was such an extraordinary sound. It was quite unlike anything we'd ever heard. And they all arrived to be interviewed in this show with the audience. They all had terrible bad colds, and they couldn't really sound a single M or N. They were in a terrible state, and I had to interview John. And he was wobbling like a jelly. And I developed, not through John, but through all the people who were afraid, all the newcomers, the strongest left arm in the business, because I used to grab them in a vice-like grip with my left arm and stick the microphone under their noses. Otherwise, they would back away, and we'd be up at the back of the stage with the scenery falling down. But John did go out to have a drink with Johnny Gustafson later, and Johnny told me that John Lennon had wobbled out, shaking from the heart out, and he said, "I've had the most terrible experience. This bleeding bird had to hold me up." And that was me. Of course, he got so blasé in the end. He was holding me up.
Multitudinous greetings to your sons and daughters. My name is Noel Edmonds, which probably means nothing to you. It means everything to me, and I hope it means something to 1 or 2 other people.
All my feelings about Luxembourg are of total gratitude and warmth for what it did for me. It was my university, and it set me up to learn an enormous amount about broadcasting and communication in a very short period of time.
They pay you well?
Fantastically well. At 19, I was being paid altogether about £3,500, compared with my father as headmaster of a secondary school getting just over £2,000. I am so grateful for all of the experiences, most of which were totally loony. I mean, I remember when there was a guy called Dave Christian who came out there to join the team, and he arrived in a slightly, shall I say, bombastic way, to be polite. I mean, he kind of gave the impression that he knew rather a lot about radio, whereas the rest of us prepared to admit we knew nothing. And he stood in the corner of the studio while Kid Jensen read the news bulletin. And just before Kid started, I pulled the microphone back and let it go, because it was the one that hung from the ceiling. And Kid read the entire news bulletin going like this. And Christian afterwards said, does that always happen? You know, which seemed a pretty naff question, really, thinking he'd spot the joke. And Jensen, as quick as anything, said, oh, yeah, you know, and if you get it wrong, that's why Luxembourg fades.
London's dance chart at number 6. Here's Quadrophonia. Find the Time, Part 1. Drive time till 7. The Kid at the controls.
Colours of the rainbow.
Remember those jingles?
Oh, the colourful.
Red is for stop.
At
2:08 on the dial. Colourful Radio Luxembourg. Because we were there during the Station of the Stars era. Do you remember that? The
Station of the Stars.
ring-a-ding,
That's
swinging
right.
Station of the Stars.
Yeah. Did you ever, get people offering you stuff for playing certain records?
Not really. I mean, I think that Luxembourg as a station used to get offered a great deal.
But you remember that big Spanish hit? With, what was it, Los Bravos.
Black is Black?
Yeah.
What happened?
All these Spanish pluggers came.
Yeah.
And they got it wrong slightly. They'd heard about, this particular way of getting records played, and they offered us all paella. But it's still, illegal. Don't you think? Yes, it's 7 minutes past 1 o'clock, and hello, welcome to the Capita Go Classic Top 20, when we take you back today 29 years to the 18th of December 1962, to a chart that has 7 going up, 8 going down, 3 new entries and 2 that haven't moved at all.
No one can make my sunshine smile.
On its way down from 12 to 20 went the Everly Brothers, No One Can Make My Sunshine Smile.
She goes out 7 nights a week.
We are off and running. It's more competitive now because there are more radio stations on the air. But I'm happy to say us old guys are holding our own. Up from 18 to number 5 went the biggest climber, on its way to number 1, where it stayed for 3 weeks. Cliff Richard. No doubt he did it in Panto in 1962, The Next Time.
They say I'll love again someday, true.
Principal boy again, Cliff.
Yep.
When I'm still so very much in love with you.
Cliff and hit sound number 5, The Next Time. One of his many number 1s, and of course he had a number 1 hit with the Eurovision Song Contest. Not a winner, though. It was actually, I met him actually when he sang the song for Great Britain. I was actually working for another radio station, the name of which, of course, I can't obviously mentioned here on Capital Gold, but suffice to say that it was based in Luxembourg. Anyway, he came out and he sang this song, Congratulations, and he came second, as I seem to recall. I went up and I congratulated him on coming second, because if I'd have come second in anything, I would have been really over the moon, but he was really quite put out. So I'm sorry, Cliff, if you're listening today. All these years on, I apologize.
Digital satellite stereo, Radio Luxembourg.